without further ado, let's jump into what is this smart systems alignment. And I like to start with an analogy. I like to give educators kind of a visual. So I'm going to use this concept of a bridge, and I'll explain what I mean by that. I want you to think about where you are today in your improvement journey. You are on one side of the bridge, and as you look way down on the other side, that's what we call our point B. Point B can be anything that is described as your desired state. It's what you aspire to be over the course of 3 to 5 years, because that's what the research is on the amount of time it takes to really transform your organization. But the bridge is held up by something very powerful. These three structures, and you're going to hear me repeat them often, and that is teamwork, collaboration, and shared leadership. Those are the pillars that help us get from where we are today, point A, to where we're trying to get to, that vision, mission, values, and goals, are point B. And that path from where we are to where we want to go is what we call that continuous improvement journey. So I also like to lead out with this. You're going to hear a lot of systems impact, a lot of transformational change concepts. And this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. This is something that we take slow and steady without taking our eye off the ball. And over the course of time, we have the ability to transform our system. So I like to use a little bit of humor, and this is what I would call the typical hierarchy of a top-down structure, where if you are the big bird, you got a pretty good view. It feels pretty good. And the further down you go in the hierarchy, it doesn't feel so good. And by the way, that white stuff, that is not snow, but that is how often people feel within a system. So we're talking about going from this traditional model of the boss on high who's giving orders to something where the leader is actually on the ground floor working together toward that common and shared vision. And so I'm going to use this term shared leadership teams. And the concept here is, how do we build trust within the system? And in these teams, what builds trust with the people in your system? When we get them together to help set that strategic direction. I heard a little bit about some of your goal areas and what you're focusing on, these roadmaps. How do we bring people together and actually solve problems, analyze data, look for different solutions? And of course, that key word, and Lori, you touched on this, is that data-driven decision-making concept. So when I talk shared leadership, it's not just about getting people in a room together, but it's really, what are they doing to form that powerful relationship that is intended to transform the organization. And so what I'm going to share with you over the short time that we have is, how do school leaders create that kind of a system that really involves everybody in continuous improvement? Now, like I said, this is taking a sip out of the fire hose here. So you have a one-page model, and this is a draft concept for your district to kick around and toy around with. But I want to highlight a couple of things. And by the way, that blue arrow, if you're in the presentation, if you click on that, you can actually download your own digital version of this document. So wherever in the presentation you see that download button, that means there's a document that you see on screen that you can actually download and utilize for your own use. So look across the top here. We're describing multiple buckets. One is shared leadership. What's that structure look like in the system? What are they doing in that roles and responsibilities? How are they documenting what it is that point B looks like? And then how are they using data, and about how much time might those kind of teams meet? Okay. Now, this is a draft concept, which means you need to take it and tweak it, change it, add to it, delete different pieces, and make it fit your structure. So please understand, I'm not advocating for take this and jam it into your system, but rather think about the concept of how everyone is involved in an actual systemic smart alignment process. On the left, you see different structures: district, support service departments like HR and the business office, every school, every teacher, and ultimately every student. So I'm gonna make this real in my own current district. So currently I serve as assistant superintendent for support services. I have responsibilities over student services, informational technology, and our data research and accountability department. So that's my current role. But I'm also assisting in our strategic planning process, which we've been doing over the past couple of years. When you look at this pyramid, down the left-hand side, I'm going to show you how these layers of shared leadership teams interact with the system. And on the right side, you're going to see the levels. So of course, at the district level, you've got a core group of district leaders that are also focusing on how are we setting direction for the district. At the school level, you've got these continuous improvement teams. I'll refer to them as CITs. I'll call them building leadership teams, school improvement teams, SIP teams. We all have acronyms. So you got to figure out what is the acronym in your system. So I'm going to call them continuous improvement teams. But how do we get every teacher engaged in this same process? Through that collaborative teacher teams, okay? Some call them PLCs, some call them SLTs. It really doesn't matter what you call them. What matters is, do teachers have time set aside to come together, collaborate, look at data, and drive changes? And Lori, I heard you mention some aspects in your system that you're looking at to ensure that that's in place. But I want to stop at this piece right here, and that is the student. You notice that the biggest base of this pyramid are the students. And I will tell you, in this model, we call them classroom learning communities. And in most districts, this is the group that we leave out of the improvement process. So in Decatur Public Schools, we've got one district, 15 schools, 575 teachers, and 7,500 students. I want 7,500 kids working on my plan, my district strategic plan, my school improvement plan, my grade level plan, and most importantly, engaging kids in their own smart learning. And I'm going to have this unfold here as we move throughout the presentation. So, what is the role of shared leadership? I showed you structures at different levels and where those teams are. The primary focus of a shared leadership team is to set and communicate direction. That means we have to talk about what our point B looks like, and then we have to communicate and project a vision that's compelling enough that people want to enter this improvement journey with us. So keep this in mind. Setting and communicating direction is the primary role of your leadership teams. It doesn't matter if it's a district team, a school continuous improvement team, or a teacher team. The concept is, what are we doing and how do we communicate what that is so people can get on board? So this is just a simple graphic that kind of shows these 4 layers and levels. And it's when we capture the power and harness the energy of all these teams that we start that journey from good to great. Okay, let's pause for a second and let's get to practical. So now I'm going to take you into the nitty gritty. What does it look like? It's nice to see a structure on paper and a plan that outlines how everybody's involved, but let's talk about how do we get into this. So the first thing is we have to build trust by getting other voices in the room, okay? That doesn't mean we have 50 people on our school improvement team, okay? What it means is that team is responsible for going out and asking core questions. It's using teamwork, collaboration, and shared leadership to garner support for what it is we're trying to become. In other words, how do we form our point B? So all of this data, here's what this is leading to, and this is where the story will pick up. It's teams that process all this information in order to create something that sets and communicates direction. And I'm going to use the model, what's called the plan on the page, okay? So this is Antioch School District, just north of you. I served as superintendent there for 6 years. So I'm going to show you some examples of when I was superintendent, how do I lead this process? I'm going to show you examples of districts I've consulted with. In fact, your neighbors in West Chicago School District, we're going to take a look at some of their samples. And then I'm going to show you my current district. So I want you to see this at all levels. What's it look like from a superintendent perspective? What does it look like when I'm coaching a district? And what does it look like when I'm helping facilitate in my own organization? So hold this thought, the plan on a page. The plan on the page is designed to set and communicate direction, okay? If you're interested in the plan on the page, I wrote an article several years ago with School Administrator called Plan on the Page, and guess what? It's a real easy read. It's one page. It may be in your handout, and you can also download a copy of that just to kind of reinforce the concept. There's not enough time today to get into the intricacies of how to do the plan on the page, but there's lots of information you can follow up on. All right, so this is what a typical organization looks like. I know you've seen this concept before, where there's a direction out there, but people within the system aren't necessarily aligning or organizing their work in order to drive toward that shared common direction, or what we call point B. So the SMART alignment model is intended to do just this. How do we get district office behaving and functioning in a way that leads us toward our point B, as described in the plan on the page? Imagine that big arrow being the district, and these smaller arrows within that larger arrow are all of your classrooms and teachers. How do we get them ensuring that the work they're doing every day is really aligning toward the work of that point B within the school? Now I'm going to change the arrow one more time. Imagine that arrow is a classroom, and I've got 25 kids, and those are the small arrows. How do we get every student engaged in that same process by which what they're doing is aligning to the goals of the classroom? And that's how the model works. Now, most of us know that this is not the roadmap, what it looks like in reality. This is what it looks like in our world in education. It's messy. There is no one size fits all. So as we're going through this today, I want you to understand that if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. So this is our challenge ahead, is how do we, knowing that this is a messy process, get ourselves into a place where we've truly transformed our system. Okay, let's talk practicality. What does this look like, and how do we implement this concept of SMART systems alignment? Okay, I shared with you the idea of in Antioch schools, we created a strategic plan. We brought together stakeholders through the course of 6 months. We got all that feedback, and it was the district leadership team that took all that feedback and said, how do we form mission, vision, values, goals? But I will tell you this, if your district strategic plan is truly a district plan, nobody else really cares a whole lot about what's in that plan. And so here's the strategy. How do we take a district plan and convince schools to say, you know what, this is where we're heading together collectively, but what does it look like in your school? So I want to share with you a quick concept, okay? This is the district plan. What I'm going to flash in front of you are every school's plan on a page. Now, I'm not asking you to read the content. You have the slides, you can go read them if you want to, but I want you to see what's coming up in front of you. Every school has the district mission, the district vision, and the district core values and commitments. What's unique about each of these plans are the specific SMART goals. So it doesn't matter what school, what grade level I'm in, what, is my school a middle school, an elementary, a high school. What matters is we know the mission and vision and the core values of the district. Now, what are the goals that we're going to have in SMART format that are going to align to those district goals? So what you see here is just samples of how we did that. Okay. Now, we didn't stop at the schools. We said, well, how does human resources fit into this? What does the business office look like? How does the research department fit into this? What about food services, custodial and grounds? And even if you outsource those departments, how do we get everybody in the system to say, hey, here's what's important in our microcosm of the system? And if everybody's focusing on just their piece, that's where transformational change happens. So what you see here is basically the plan on the page that all stems from a district plan, but it's now customized to each school. Okay, educators need convincing, right? I'm an educator, I get it. So the plan on the page is not all there is to this process. The plan on the page is what sets and communicates direction. What we need to do next is go in and say, now what's behind that plan on the page? This is where the real work occurs, okay? Plans on the page set and communicate direction, but it's the school improvement plan that really drives the work within the school. So what you're seeing here on the left, you see the download. If you want to download that plan on the page, you can get a full version of it. You can also get a full version of one of the school's school improvement plan, okay? For our purposes today, I only have enough time to give you some snapshots. But here's what I want you to look at. Back on this plan on the page, which stemmed from the district plan and is now a school plan, now what we do is say, how do we get every grade level engaged in that process? And so you're going to see second grade looks at their MAP scores. And they say if our school goal is 56% by the end of the year, but second grade is currently at 48, what's going to be a smart target for our grade level? And then from that, we say, what does an action plan look like? Now watch what happens here. We get into third grade, and then they say, well, what does our data look like? What are we going to do? And I want you to see the difference on the left-hand side with some strategies, okay? And I just took one horizontal line of their plan. They're going to, students complete nonfiction, book, look, worksheets on text features. That was important at second grade. But look what third grade said. Well, we got a little different goal because our data is different, and we're going to use expeditionary learning lessons, achieve 3,000. Okay, they're talking about what does it look like in third grade, and I'll just jump to fifth grade where you can see some similar things. But notice throughout all of this what's different. When you have a school improvement plan and you have a target, it doesn't make any sense that that is the same target for every single grade level because the data is different. So how do we get ownership at each level? We have to engage those collaborative teacher teams to say, let's look at our data. Where are we? What's our point A here when we get that fall benchmark? And then we say, what is our point B when we get to the spring assessment? What do we expect to see? And then that continuous improvement journey, remember the bridge. What we do from point A to point B is laid out in an action plan. But I wanted you to see that differentiation that occurs in these plans. Okay? Now, again, I'm going quick here, but I want to give you concepts. So let's switch to West Chicago schools. I've had the opportunity, I still do consulting, even though I'm a full-time educator, assistant superintendent. I do utilize some of my time in the consulting world. West Chicago is one of my most recent clients. And when I got to them a couple of years ago, they were struggling with, from a district level, how do we set and communicate direction and actually make it stick so that people are doing something with this strategic plan? And so you understand the concept that I shared with you is how do we take a district plan and then matriculate that throughout all of these schools. And so again, this is not a reading test for you to understand what's in these plans, but I wanted you to see the concept of every school taking that district plan, looking at the goal areas. You're going to see literacy, math, and culture. Every one of these plans has 3 goal areas: literacy, math, culture, literacy, math, culture. But within them are different targets, a different school improvement plan, and a different set of strategies by grade level on what's most important based on that particular school. Setting and communicating direction happens from the plan on the page, but the real work of the plan is done in grade level teams. Through those collaborative teacher teams, setting SMART goals, setting SMART targets, and then meeting regularly to review that data to determine if we're on track from our point A to point B. So I showed you Antioch schools where I was superintendent, how the process worked. I showed you West Chicago. Now I'm going to show you what's happening currently in my own district. And I'm only doing this to say it doesn't matter if you're in the suburbs, if you're down south, if you're over in Europe, in the Netherlands. The process and the concept works because it's rooted in research and best practices. Okay, so here's Decatur Public Schools. All right, plan on the page. You get the concept: mission, vision, values, goals, student expectations, collective commitments, and whatnot. This is how we set and communicate direction. And as you can imagine, what's coming next? This is what we do. Every school gets the template, and we say, let's get your own plan on the page going. You cannot change the mission. You cannot change the vision, but what you are expected to change are the specific SMART goals for your department or for your school. So each of those shared leadership teams at the department or the school level are looking at what are the goals going to be for us to align to those district goals. And then, as you know, the real work happens when we get into those action plans that has strategies, timelines, and becomes the roadmap for us to get from point A to point B. All of these plans then are live, real time, in Google Docs, where if you click on it, you get view access, but the teams have edit access. So I wanted to show you a little bit more detail. So I'm going to show you district level, and then I've already showed you some school samples, but this is our innovative programs office. And they said, well, what are the 3 goals we're going to have that are going to focus on supporting district goals? So I blew those up for you a little bit to see them. But most importantly is, how do we take those and now create action plans? So it doesn't matter if you are a district level administrator, a school level administrator, a teacher, classroom, or a student. Everybody has some kind of plan on the page that sets and communicates direction, but then it's these SMART goals and action plans that really make the work happen. And again, the green arrows downloaded. If you want to see this particular sample, you have the ability to do that. We don't have time today, but if you're in the presentation, if you click on the click here button, you can go into a document and see every single department's plan on the page, their SMART goals, their action plans, and you can do the same thing for every school. So think about where we started not too long ago today. Shared leadership teams set and communicate direction. We do that through the plan on the page, but we get ownership and buy-in and build trust through that shared leadership team structure.